Thank you very much. It is an extraordinary privilege to be here. First came to Israel 52 years ago in the summer of 1973. I was all of 17, a month away from my 18th birthday. I've been coming back ever since, and every time I come, I just can't wait to get back the next time. But never did a little kid from Hope, Arkansas, who grew up thinking he would never get 30 miles from his hometown, imagine that one day the President of the United States would give me the extraordinary privilege of representing my president, my country, to be the ambassador to the State of Israel. And I want you to know tonight that had the President asked me to do anything else in his administration, I would have said, sir, thank you, but no thank you, I don't want to. And I will absolutely tell you that every day of the week and twice on Sunday, I would much rather live in Jerusalem than in Washington, D.C. In fact, I think the people of Israel said, President Trump, would you send us a Maccabee? And he misunderstood and he sent you a Huckabee instead. I cannot tell you how intimidating it is to come and speak right after Sid and before that Bruce Pearl. Bruce had me so motivated, I think I could have hit a three-pointer from mid-court. No wonder he's Coach of the Year, and no wonder his team was in the Final Four. I'm not very good at playing any sports, but I believe I could have come out of the locker room, suited up, and taken on anybody tonight after hearing him. I'd like to think that I could have been a great athlete. As a little kid, I dreamed of quarterbacking the Dallas Cowboys to a Super Bowl. These days, I don't think anybody will ever do that again. And I told Sid before the speech, I knew he was going to light the place up, but I said, Sid, your problem is you just don't have any enthusiasm. This is at the point of the program. You've been here for a couple of days. You have an extraordinary speech coming up from Mark Levin, who's one of the most amazing, brilliant people on the planet. When I was governor and we used to go to these events that had a lot of speakers, sometimes we would say, everything that needs to be said has been said, but not everybody has said it yet. So that's where I am on this particular program, I'm pretty sure. When I got to Israel, the first thing that I did as ambassador sent by President Trump was to take a prayer that he had handwritten, given to me, and I brought it on his behalf and took it to the hotel because I didn't think of anything that would be more important in becoming his representative and that of the United States than taking a prayer for the peace of Jerusalem to the hotel, placing it in the wall on behalf of the American people. And that is how I started my tenure. I'm proud of the President for doing some things immediately when he was sworn in. He reversed a lot of the ridiculous policies of the previous administration, one of which was to not give Israel the necessary tools to fight a war against the worst savages that we have seen, not just in our century, but perhaps in human history, because they did not grow up in a tribal world without the possibility of an education. They did the most awful things to other human beings, and not only did they do it with a sense of mission and purpose, but they were actually proud of it and called back home to boast to their parents that they had murdered Jews. I think all of you know I'm not Jewish. I can't pretend that I'm one of you, but I can tell you with heart that when Sid said, we don't have any friends, I wanted to stand up and say, well, you got at least one in this room, and it's me. Some folks have said that I'm supposed to make a policy speech, but you must understand how I feel about policy. I believe that policy is not so much what's on the paper. Policy is how we treat people. That's policy. And I'm convinced today that what the world needs is a real dose of understanding what people are up against who live in this, the most contested piece of real estate on God's entire planet. Today I was driving to the embassy, and there's a massive billboard with the pictures of all the hostages. We came to a stoplight, and I just looked at that for a while. And I realized this is not just a wall of hostages. These are sons and daughters and mothers and grandmothers and little children. And these were the targets that Hamas decided to go after. Not a military target, civilians, pregnant women, little babies, elderly people, disabled people. Who does that? People who are evil, that's who. This is not a geopolitical struggle, the left versus the right, the liberal versus the conservative. This is a vertical battle between heaven and hell, between good and evil, between light and darkness. And one of the reasons that I am so grateful to God to be here is to make sure that not just here in Israel but across the world, people understand that the United States of America and President Trump stands for good and not evil, and that's why he has made it very clear that Hamas has no future in Gaza or anywhere else on this earth. People ask me, what's your primary objective being here? Well, the first thing is let's get the hostages home, and let's get them home now, every last one of them. The President's made it very clear. He's given to every ambassador the simple instructions of do what we do to make America stronger, to make it safer, and to make it more prosperous. I want Americans to understand that our relationship with our ally Israel is not a one-way street. It is not that Israel benefits so greatly because of its relationship to America. It is also that America benefits greatly from its relationship to Israel. We are the beneficiary. What we do in so many ways is paltry compared to the many ways in which we are able to share military technology, that we're able to share intelligence that saves the lives of Americans. But then there are the more practical things, the medical advancements that were created right here in Israel that has saved the lives of thousands of Americans, including many of our own relatives. But Americans don't realize that. They think we invented everything. We didn't. More Nobel Prize winners for science in Israel than any other place on earth as a country, in this tiny little country. But we benefit from the technology. I tell Americans all the time, do you like a cell phone? Thank Israel for that. You wouldn't have one without them. Agricultural innovation, nobody's done it like Israel. There was an Israeli farmer, he bought a piece of land down in the Negev. It was absolutely worthless. It was dirt, it was rock, there was nothing there. It was pathetic. Like the Israel that I saw 52 years ago when I first came. And he worked that land. He worked it hard, and he created something special through drip irrigation and the technologies that Israel has created. And one day, 5 years after he'd been there, he was actually growing fruits and vegetables. One day his rabbi came out to him and said, "Oh, my son, what you and God have done with this piece of land." And the farmer wiped the sweat from his brow and said, "Yeah, Rabbi, you should have seen it when God had it all by himself." It's a great reminder that, yes, I believe that Israel is a chosen place for a chosen people, for a chosen purpose. And I say that not because I'm Jewish, I say it because it's true. And I affirm that which has been the truth for 3,500 years. This is his land. And I realize there are a lot of people who don't want to get into the spiritual side of things and just sort of dismiss that. But folks, there is no explanation for the United States of America other than that there was a God who intervened on behalf of those incredible colonialists who truly thought that it was better to die than it was to live as slaves and under a tyranny. And people don't sometimes fully understand that one of the reasons that our alliance is so strong is that it's not political, it is spiritual, because the only explanation for the creation and the survival and the victory of Israel is that God's hand is upon this land, and it always will be. Let us never doubt that. On March the 23rd, I spoke to the Israel Heritage Foundation in New York, and during the course of my remarks, I mentioned that my wife and I both grew up in a little town called Hope, Arkansas. Don't know if you've ever heard of Hope before. Someone else was born there, but he moved away when he was 5. My family didn't have enough money to leave. We were there. If he were here tonight, he would say, "I believe in a place called Hope." But we grew up in Hope, Arkansas, and I mentioned that. And during the course of the dinner, Janet and I met a remarkable man named Louis Har, who spent 129 days as a hostage in Gaza at the hands of Hamas. When he went in, he weighed 187 pounds. When he came out, 129 days later, he weighed 150 pounds. Sometimes the showering was a cold bucket of water that 5 people had to share with a tiny scrap of soap. And they got to do that every 2 weeks. They were treated horribly. They were starved. But the amazing thing about Louis Har was that it did not destroy him. It made him more determined. Last Thursday night, I was at an event at the Forest of the Martyrs, and a gentleman came up. He had a cap and sunglasses on. Neither Janet nor I recognized him at first. He took the sunglasses off, and I realized it was Louis. 1 month before, we had seen him. In New York, he had heard that we were from Hope. He took a necklace off of his neck, and he put it around my wife's neck. It was a simple necklace that in Hebrew spelled hope, hatikva. He gave it to my wife. She's wearing it tonight, and she wears it every single day. Not because it's our hometown, because it represents everything that Louis Har endured for the people of Israel. Louis Har, we saw him last week. What an incredible joy to reunite with this person who understands that to be Jewish is to be a target. When I tell people I pray for the peace of Jerusalem, I don't do it because I'm supposed to, or it's a slogan. I do it because I really believe that if there were a time in all of human history that a people deserved security and safety and sovereignty over the land that God gave them 3,500 years ago when he gave the title deed to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If there ever was a time that the city of Jerusalem should be absolutely recognized as the indisputable, undivided capital of the Jewish people, it is now. And I'm glad Donald Trump, the president, admitted and acknowledged that. Just last night, I was at an event with the American Association of Americans and Canadians for Israel. I met David Lubin. David was actually born in Turl, Arkansas, which nobody's ever heard of. Even the people in Turl have never heard of Turl, Arkansas. His family later moved to Memphis and then to Atlanta. He had a daughter named Rose, and when she was 5 years old, they made their first trip to Israel. Rose was so captivated by Israel, kind of like I was when I was 17. Rose was Jewish. And Rose refused to get on the airplane to come back to America at 5 years old. And her parents finally had to convince her, You've got to come back. We'll bring you back, we promise. And that's the only way they got around the plane. From that point on, Rose said, I'm going to go to Israel. I'm going to live in Israel. And that was what she told her classmates all the way through her life. At age 18, she came to Israel. She made Aliyah. She joined the IDF. And on the day of October the 7th, she happened to be at a kibbutz at Sayad and was called upon to help defend that kibbutz as the Hamas terrorists came and overran it. Miraculously, she lived through that day, saving the lives of dozens. She went back to her job at the IDF and was working in the old city of Jerusalem when she was stabbed by a 16-year-old terrorist and died from her wounds. When I met her father, I just hugged him. And I said, no father should have to go through that. When she had her bat mitzvah, she made a remarkable statement. She said, there will be a time when I won't exist in this world. I will do something great for the world. That's what she said at her bat mitzvah. She said, I won't wait for the world to do something great for me. For Louis Haar, for Rose, for every Jewish mother who tonight will put their babies to bed and tuck them in and pray the siren doesn't go off so that they have to rush them to safety and shelter. I pray that we won't wait for the world to do something great, that we will do something great for the world and bring peace to Israel and peace to the Jewish people. I love you. I thank you. I stand with you, and God bless you all. Thank you very, very much.